Hi everyone, please stay until the end of this video because you will see amazing new technologies and we will even get to the skyscrapers. I'm still in the Netherlands, but let's cut to the chase and talk about this book. So I get this question often that, Peter, can you recommend a financial book for beginners? And you know, usually it's the Robert Kiyosaki's type of books, Rich Dad Poor Dad type of books, but there is one book nobody's talking about, and that's the book of the Nobel laureate George Oláh, because he was a researcher, but he did not just simply did his research, publish it, and that's it, but he thought, now how could we apply this? What is the practical application of this research? And he made patents, he made applications, he made devices, whatever. So the industry could use that, and that's brought more and more money for his institute. And that's how they could do even more research, build new buildings. So that's the way, and that's a great life lesson for us. And I think this is the main message. That's why I'm here today at the University of Southern California campus in Los Angeles. I will visit the local hydrocarbon research institute, and they will show me what they are working on today to advance the technologies of the future, and what is the legacy of the work of Professor Oláh. So that's great, I'm excited. Stay tuned. Nice to meet you.
Peter, so nice to meet you.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Anisfeld, who is the Managing Director of the local Hydrocarbon Research Institute. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm delighted that you have time for us. Thank you very much. What will you show us? You have two interesting technologies at least, right?
That is correct. First of all, thank you for your interest.
It is my pleasure.
So we scientists like to talk about our little child's projects, and you're absolutely right. We have two projects. We have more projects, but two that actually reach the technology readiness level that is interesting to talk about, show other people what it could do. Because the name of the game is impact, and it's just in a laboratory bench, it's very hard to see how it could have impact.
Yeah, we need to do this in practice.
In practice,
yeah.
We need to
Apply
reduce it to practice.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, and that's one of the key responsibilities I have at the local institute, which is part of the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And so yeah, thank you for your interest.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we dive in and showcase the two technologies that I am passionately involved in. It's built on the legacy of Professor George Oláh, who developed the general overarching concept for what we call the methanol economy, where the centrality of a simple one carbon alcohol, methanol, is established. And we think that this technology, this concept and technologies associated with that has some great potential to address some of the major challenges of our time. One is global warming, another is energy storage. Batteries is one type of energy storage that most people are familiar with. They carry one every day in their pocket, in their phone. But we are talking about storing the energy of a power plant. not so much your phone. So the type of energy storage we devoted our time to is to bridge the gap between renewable energy generations, like think here solar and wind, and try to make it into a primary energy source. But what I mean by that base load cannot be addressed with something that is intermittent. In order for it to replace coal-burning power plant, gas-burning power plant, you need the storage in between to store the solar panels' energy and to store the wind's energy. And only then it can take the place of base generation. So it's a major issue. A lot of people working on it.
Yeah.
The one battery type that we hang our hat on or are pushing is organic, inorganic redox flow battery. So what are they? What are these exotic name batteries? Are batteries where you essentially have a fuel cell in the middle and two storage tanks that stores the electroactive materials. And pumps are pushing these materials into the fuel cells in order to generate the electricity or to store the electricity, depending if you're charging or discharging that. So I have one that we have developed here in a showcase that I would like to show you. So would you like to see it?
Yes, definitely.
All right. So we are very proud of this. This is, so it started in a lab in a box like this, but now it's taken this shape and it's way too big to the power that it actually gives. This is a 2 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt hour installation, but in the future, we hope to reduce its size and still give you the amount of power.
Yeah, this is the first prototype.
Yes, this is the first prototype. As you see, we are very proud. It's invented here at the local institute. But this is one prototype in our way to commercial products. So here, I don't know how well you can see it, but maybe you can zoom in.
Yes.
This aluminum block is housing 20 cell fuel cells, 20 individual cells stacked side by side. And there are two stacks. So the 20 cells calls a stack. There are two stacks here for both flexibility and maximizing power. And there are two pumps on this side, one on the other side, and below there are two tanks that stores the electricity. These are just polypropylene tanks, and the pump circulates electroactive material. Essentially, you can think of this as the fuel cell represent the power, and the size and the electroactive material below in this tank represent energy. It's a very important distinction about the difference between your lithium-ion battery in your pocket. Once you charge the lithium-ion battery, it's full, it cannot take more power. And it can only give you, in good cases, maybe 70% of that power that is stored in your lithium-ion battery, because there is a battery management system. In this technology, you can discharge this battery to 100%. This is one other benefit between lithium-ion and redox flow batteries. The other is that the size of the energy storage part is expandable. If you put a bigger tank underneath, it will store more energy. You need more material, but it will store more energy. So this system is expandable compared to your need. And if you need more power, you could have more power by having more stacks. Mm-hmm. But these two are decoupled. In a lithium-ion battery structure, that's fixed. Baked in. Yeah, it's fixed. Yeah. It's fixed. So the advantages, so this is just a difference between two different type of batteries. But what about the competition for this battery. So the most known example is vanadium,
yeah.
right? But vanadium is a scarce material. We put our head on finding something that is earth abundant, right? That there's no limitation. Now, if you need vanadium, there's limited resources, and when limited resources, the price goes up. So the world knows how to store energy. The key metric is, can you store it cheaply? So you don't add enormous cost to the storage where it's prohibitive, right? So how do you make it inexpensive? By lowering the cost of materials, by having materials that are recyclable so that you don't spend money to remediate. They are not toxic, they won't kill anybody, you know. So, Peter, you remember I mentioned two companies that I'm interested in leading to some greater commercial use. This particular company is called CO2 on tap. It's from the word of a tap that you can just open and CO2 flows out of it. So CO2 on tap. In order to have CO2 on tap, you first have to capture CO2.
Yes.
Right? And where do you capture it? Yeah. Where do you capture it from? You capture it from air. Capturing CO2 in all sorts of forms, from all sorts of countries, is a known art. People figure this out, and capturing it at a levelized cost that is usable and scalable to the millions of tons that needs to be removed from air, it's still a challenge. And a lot of people are working on it, among them us. Our claim to fame is that we have developed solid adsorbents that are capable of capturing CO2 on their own, thermodynamically downhill, and we are able to regenerate them by just simply heating them. They capture CO2 at 25 centigrade, and they start releasing CO2 at 50 centigrade, and completely release CO2 at 95 centigrade. And once they release it, they can do the job again. Let's think of it as a sponge. You know, right? Yeah. It picks up water. When it's dry, then you have to squeeze it again to get the water out.
1,000 times reusable.
1,000 times reusable. Thousands of times reusable. Yeah. Right. So the name of the game is you need to lower the cost of doing that activity. Okay? And the more cycles you have, the cheaper it gets, because it's in the denominator, right? Here. This is what I wanted to show you.
I should focus on that?
Yes. You should focus on this. So this is the best way to explain this. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the graph of CO2 concentration measured in ppms. So when things enter here, this is the beginning of the experiment. When things enter, it's 420 ppm. But when it hits the adsorbent, it drops to 0 or very close to 0. So all the CO2 in the air that is passing through our adsorbent, our solid adsorbent, are being captured. And are being captured for hours. And there is this point is called the breakthrough point, where our CO2 starts to not be captured 100%. Some of it gets off and off till that sponge that I was talking about cannot capture anymore. Like a water, well, you can capture with the same sponge unlimited amount of water, yes. Right? So this is a typical curve for solid adsorption. CO2 in air goes through a bed of solid adsorbents, and CO2 free air comes through. So these are the adsorbents, and the beauty of the adsorbents is that when they are wet, they work twice as good. So intuitively, people say, but can you work in a wet environment? Not only in a humid environment. Can I work in humid? Not only I can work in the absorbent is more efficient in a humid environment because the chemistry is different, which is described in this slide. This is how it looks like. The material. This is, right. Right, as once it's one, yeah.
Could not show you this one.
Right, this one. Okay, this is a part. So how it's used? It's used in filters like this. We make filters that are about an inch thick, and you can, when you pass air through it, the resistance is not too high. I told you about two type of. So we artificially divided the world into catch and release and catch and use. We are the catch and use people. We licensed it to a company called Enverid, who are the catch and release people. What they do is they capture CO2 from indoor air and they release it to the outside.
In offices, for example.
Yeah, the indoor air is offices, office buildings, big auditoriums, classrooms, you name it. Wherever air conditioning is important, that's what they do. And why? You say, what's the point of catching something and throwing it out to the, is because CO2 accumulates in the indoor air to a point where 1500 ppm, so 420 is normal air, 1500 ppm starts to affect your cognitive abilities. So others, how are others doing it that they don't use this system? They just simply introduce outside air and flush the system. It's like the old open the window and let fresh air in. It's winning by dilution, okay? But when in an air-conditioned building, you can't just open the window because it messes up the air conditioning system. What you need to do is to temper the air that you introduce. It's called introducing outside air through mechanical systems. And the more air you need to introduce, the more air you need to heat or cool, and that's energy.
It's cost.
It's cost.
Yeah.
So with this system, depending on climate, you could save 35% of the HVAC cost of a heating and cooling of a building.
So it's an investment, but
it's an investment, but it pays off, but it pays for itself.
Yes,
And in some cases, the investment pays for itself from day one. How can it pay for itself from day one? And the reason it pays for itself is because when you use this system, the size of your air handler is shrunk because you don't need to move that much air. Yes. The size of your duct has shrunk. So in a new building, if you decide to install with no CO2 removal or install with CO2 removal, the CapEx, the capital cost of installing one is significantly less, where it pays for the installation of the system.
Yeah, more compact, and you have more usable space.
I didn't even add that to the equation, but all of it, so it pays for itself from day one. So this whole idea of carbon management for us is leave all the carbon in the ground. Only use carbon that is above ground already. Now, we are not there yet, clearly not there where the world could just say, stop, forget oil and gas, let's just use whatever carbon in the form of CO2 is above ground. This is a process that's going to take us a while, but the goal is to do more and more of it and gradually replacing oil and gas and leave that carbon in the ground and only use carbon that is already above ground. A vision that was coined by the late Professor George Oláh, together with Professor Surya Prakash and some of us, but they are the two main figures who have majorly contributed to developing the whole concept. But they didn't just stop there. They systematically attacked every part of that construct. Okay, if I need to capture CO2, how do I do that? So we developed materials that can do that. Now that you got CO2, what are you going to do with it? We developed chemistry and technology to convert that CO2 to methanol. Now you got methanol. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to use it in direct methanol fuel cell. I'm going to put it in an internal combustion engine. I'm going to make polymers from it. A host of other things open up. And we systematically approached it by developing chemistries, and then when it was right, developed technologies. And that's just what the bread and butter of the Locher Institute, and also a couple of the companies that I was talking to you about. Thanks for your interest.
Amazing, amazing. Keep the good work going.
Trying.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We are not there yet, but we are
I can see that.
marching along that way. Peter.
So, Dr. Ennisfeld, thank you very much for having time for us. It was amazing. I saw unbelievable things, and I see the future. You are developing the future of mankind. Thank you very much.
You're very kind. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your visit. It was nice meeting you. And thanks, I think I enjoyed also the opportunity to remember Dr. Oláh, who was my mentor, and I worked under his tutelage for about 7 years. He was a giant in his field. We miss him. He's not just a great chemist, but a great human being. It was a thing to work under him.
Yes, I agree.
Or with him.
And this is a perfect reminder of his 30 years anniversary of his award. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.
The city noise is pretty loud, so I don't know how much you will understand from this. But the point is, I have one more evening in Los Angeles after the meetings, and there is so much to see, so many iconic sites. A lot of movies have been filmed here. There is this Walk of Fame with the stars. I don't know what it's called. Rodeo Drive, Hollywood, whatever you want, it's all here. But I'm not really interested in those. I specifically wanted to come to this building, and I try to show you some pictures of it shortly if I can. So this is 555 West 5th Street, the gas company tower. And what you need to know is that it is 52 stories tall, but what is really interesting is that it was valued at $632 million in 2021, but now it's only worth $215 million. Therefore, it lost over $400 million or so in just 3 years, simply because property values always go up, right? So it has lost 2/3 of its value, let's say in 3 years, while it still has $465 million in debt on it. An amazing example. So I wanted to show you this. This is interesting to me, and I came to this neighborhood where these skyscrapers are to experience that feeling a bit. It's hard to put into words, so I won't even try. Huge, really huge. The other thing I wanted to check out today is the sunset at the Griffith Observatory. Despite how many people there are here, the view is beautiful. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I wish you a lovely evening. Goodbye.